In Why is Life Like a Shower, we're looking at negatives and we're looking at absolute value. So let's look at a couple of these problems. So if we have in W, which is the first one, negative 4 plus 10. Okay? When you say negative 4, it's very confusing, is it not? Yeah. So there are two ways to talk about these. This is negative. It also has another name, which is opposite. And they can be used interchangeably. So, if we're looking at this problem here, I'm not going to ask you, I'm going to tell you. You can call this the opposite of negative 4. What is the opposite of negative 4?
Positive 4.
Now you have positive 4 plus 10. What is that?
14.
14. You've now answered that question. Okay, so let's look at one like number 11, number n, or letter n. Negative 11 plus 6. Same kind of problem. What's the opposite of negative 11?
Positive 11.
Positive 11 plus 6 is
17.
17. So far so good?
Yeah. Yes.
Isn't opposite easier to use sometimes?
Yes.
Okay. Now let's look at one that looks awfully hard, like letter N. N uses absolute value. What is absolute value?
It shows how far 0 is to a number.
So that's it.
It actually utilizes, there's the problem we're going to do. That's letter N. So let me draw a number line real quick. 1, 2, 3. Excuse me. All right, so we've got a number line. So if we look at 2, how far is 2 from 0 on the number line?
2.
Okay, good. How far is negative 2 from 0 on the number line?
2. 2. Negative 2.
Okay, now, we said 2 is 2 from 0 on the number line. Therefore, the absolute value of 2 is 2. That's how far it is. Now let me ask you a question. If you're walking forward and you take 2 steps, how far did you go?
2 steps forward.
2 steps.
Or 1 pace.
Right, 2.
Or 1 pace.
2. Okay? If you step 2 steps backwards, how far did you go?
2 steps.
How far did
0
you go?
steps.
2. Did you go? How far did you go? 2.
2 take away 2 is
Did
0.
you still go a certain value? Did you go a
Already.
certain distance? Or did you ungo?
You go.
You go. You still go that distance, don't you? So you went from 0 to negative 2, but you still went. You didn't ungo. So the absolute value, or the distance from 0 of negative 2 is also 2. So absolute value measures distance. And the long and short of it is, distance is never 0. Or distance is never negative. Because you're always going to go somewhere with distance. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Questions? Or that makes sense, doesn't it? Distance, even if you walk backwards because you're talking to your buddy and you're walking backwards, you're still going to get the same place they are. Right? You ever do that?
Yeah.
Because you're in a silly mood and you want to talk to them face to face? Okay, so here it is. Here's the absolute value. Leave the absolute value sign until you're ready. The secret of these problems is to do them a little at a time. What's negative 5 plus 12?
6. No.
7.
What's the absolute value of 7? How far is it from 0?
7.
7. So 7 plus negative 7 equals
0.
You got it. That's it. That's how hard it is. Yes, question.
From the other page, you put the answer wrong. Yeah, it's supposed to be from the true column to the false column.
That's fine. We'll talk about that on another tape. We're taping, sweetheart. Okay? And, yeah. We can talk about that. Okay, so letter I down below. Letter I. We're doing the opposite of, so write it right underneath, please. Okay, so in letter I. Now, the other thing to keep in mind, absolute value, remember when we're talking about PEDs, I say parentheses and other grouping symbols? Do you think absolute value might be a grouping symbol? Say yes.
Yes.
Oh, so we have to do what's inside absolute value first. Please listen and don't do other assignments right now. Okay? So, negative, what's negative 11 plus 6?
Five.
Negative 5. What's the absolute value of negative 5?
5.
5, and the opposite of that is negative 5. So you see, if you go step by step and write down each step, you'll always be correct. If you try to jump straight from the first part to the last part, you'll frequently miss something. Looking at something as complex as I can. Let's see. Let's look at E, which is the opposite of parentheses. 2, absolute value negative 7 plus negative 6 bracket. Okay, does that look pretty awful?
Yeah. Pretty awful.
With all of these, you work from the inside most out. And the key is to go a small step at a time. So the smallest thing we have here, and notice I write the parentheses here, is this is going to be, you're going to do your absolute value first. So what's the absolute value of negative 7? 7. So change the absolute value sign to parentheses. Because parentheses tells you to do what operation?
Multiplication.
Multiplication. Perfect. Minus, what's 2 times 7?
14.
14. So that's 14 plus negative 6 is in parentheses. What's 14 plus negative 6?
8.
And the answer is the opposite of 8.
Negative 8.
The opposite of 8, which is
Negative 8.
It's just another way to say exactly the same thing. Do you see why it took 5 steps? Did 5 steps actually make it easier? And that's one of the reasons I like to take my paper and fold it lengthwise, hot dog, so I can get 4 parts of paper that I can write on, because I have a tendency to write long and thin, because I like to have each step. Okay? One more. I'm going to do one substitution piece, and I'll do it hot dog. Okay? One like, oh, W. Is that a good one?
Yeah.
W, the opposite, absolute value, X plus negative 8, and X equals 4. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is what?
You substitute.
Substitute, perfect. Plus negative 8, and I'm going to use blue, and I'm going to say X equals 4. Oh, solve what's inside your absolute value. What's 4 plus negative 8?
4.
No.
What is
Negative 4.
4 plus negative 8 is going to be negative 4. What is the absolute value of negative 4?
4.
The answer would then be negative 4.
4.
Is it okay? Did you take notes?
Yeah.
Or are you just going to watch the video 35 times?